All right.
It is 6:17 on Thursday, the 6th of April, and I call the Finance Committee meeting to order.
And I'm calling the Board of Selectmen's meeting to order as well.
First thing is the meeting minutes from March 30th.
I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting of March 30th.
Second.
Any discussion? Corrections? I have one. Karen did not also ask that the assessor's office and a town accountant be cut as well. I indicated that the assessor's office and the town accountant's office were not affected. We did not vote to do any of that last week. It was just discussed that those departments were not cut. It was discussed that there was a potential cut to be taken from
So
them.
how do we want to change that, all that there, Kim?
It's right there. It says Karen also asked to have the assessor's office and
want
town
that all
accountant to be
struck?
cut. It was Karen indicated that the assessor's office and town accountant's weren't affected. And then there was discussion on how we were going to handle that. But no votes were taken.
So I'll rescind my motion. You want to rescind your second?
Obviously, yep.
And I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes of March 30th as amended.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So we do have a gentleman here from Rutland Little League who's asked to speak for a few minutes.
John Holland, District Orders. My name is Jonathan Miller. I'm the president of Rutland Little League, 27 Brunel Drive, here in Rutland. And I'm here tonight because on March 13th, we submitted a permit to the town, as we do every single year, for use of the fields. And here we are 4 weeks later, and that permit's not signed. And the reason I'm being told it's not signed is because we are faced with a budget shortfall, and that the fields can't get mowed, and the permit's not going to be signed until that's resolved. And so I'm hoping somebody here, since this is joint finance and the Board of Selectmen, can explain to me how holding town fields that we largely maintain as a league is being held hostage for a budget decision that can't be made until 3 weeks after our season begins. And so I'm hoping somebody here can tell me how that makes sense and how we can rectify that.
Through the chair, could you just clarify to me who you spoke to and who told you, gave you that information?
I spoke to DPW. I have an email from DPW that the fields, that there's no way to maintain that. I confirmed that with the town administrator this morning. I've had numerous conversations, and so right now it looks like we can't use the fields, and we've got to cancel our season. A season that we've been using the town fields for well over 50 years. And so the question is, how does taking that away from the kids in our community, how is that going to impact our budget?
If I can, through the chair, please. Jonathan, thank you. And by the way, Jonathan did come in today and report that he has installed at their expense 5 porta potties for the fields. 2 at Memorial, I sent the email, not that that's part of this discussion, 2 at Memorial, 1 at Glenwood, 1 at Nagwog, and 1 at Central Tree Middle. So Jonathan, the short answer to that, and I'm sure it's not satisfying you for the whole season, is any of these budget discussions or what's passed and what's not, does not take effect till July 1st.
Okay, so then can you help me understand why the permit hasn't been signed? Our season is over by July 1st.
Okay, I can do that, but I can only do that until this is all decided and discussed of where we're going, but I can do that till July 1st.
Well, all right, so I guess I don't understand that. This is in fiscal year '23 that the league is going to be running, and
Yes.
that's finalized.
Right, but it did, as of July 1st, we're to fiscal year '24, and they still have a season.
No,
Is
he
that
said he
true?
was finished by
Right.
July
Our season
1st.
is over by July. Our season is done on Father's Day, and we are off of Memorial Field at Father's Day.
All right,
There are some practices that may go on for All-Stars, but for the most part, we are largely done by July 1st.
okay.
So who made this decision?
I will, this is the decision is based on 24 discussions, Lyndon. I apologize for
No,
this.
I
I'll
know,
take
but
care
it's
of
the
that.
wrong year, so I just don't know
Understood,
who
but
would
this
have
is-
given that information.
Right.
Okay, I will take care of that.
All right,
Through the chair.
Play ball, it sounds like.
Yeah?
You got your answer.
You know, well, I think
But even
There's a
with,
few of us around the room that played on those fields back in the day, and this isn't the first year we've had this crisis, and I've never seen that we shut the fields down and they maintain them themselves. If it wasn't for the, what's that? They do the dirt, they do the bases, they mow it, they do all that stuff. So we telling them, I don't know, it just seems like a new direction.
Well, isn't it just that the DPW is not anticipating
Being able
having
to
the
do it.
resources to be able to do it going forward? But for this year, for 2023, it seems like it's already a commitment. And I would expect that they're going to meet that commitment.
All right, so then I guess my point is, and then I'll stop talking, is if these guys maintain the fields anyways, who cares? And the town allows them to use the fields,
But they cut them last year.
and they take care of them. What do we care? And unless there's some sort of a, I don't know,
I think we need to figure out what's gonna go on next year. So, the boards obviously were not aware. Hopefully, it should be resolved, and you should be able to get your permit through the end of the year. 24 is a mess. We're discussing everything, so you're not the only one that was discussing everything going on in town, because we're in a very difficult situation.
Understood.
But I apologize, but right, as long as it ends by the end of the year, we're on the same budget schedule this fiscal year.
Okay.
All right.
But be advised, there's no guarantee for next year.
but if they have fall ball at Marsh Field, and
Oh, we
which
get-
is a town field, how does it get mowed? They mow it
We
themselves.
haven't
Marshfield is
decided
a
anything for
private
next
lease.
year yet.
Right?
Not part of it.
Well, Marshfield is a private lease. We
Right.
privately lease that from the town.
Okay.
That's not impacted by this. This is Memorial Field, this is the school fields, ultimately that we're discussing.
If I may, we did have an email from Joe that went to the board, just giving us a heads up as to the direction of all of this, and asking kind of, I took it more as why is he even being presented it? Because he's not gonna have a say in it. Like, he's not gonna have people to do anything to
Right.
do the work, so it's not on him. I don't know if there was conversation after that. It went to all the members of the board. But I think also he's following in line with the conversations that if the 24 budget goes forward without the override and with all the drastic cuts, and the conversation about there shouldn't be any 4th of July and there shouldn't be any of all these other fun, extracurricular, whatever, I think that he's putting that in line with all of that. Now, whether there's a deeper conversation as to the agreements between the leagues and what they can do for the fields to still be able to maintain, we haven't, to my knowledge, haven't gotten there with the leagues at all. So I think that I don't want to put words in Joe's mouth, but based on the email that we received on
March 15th.
March 15th, that's the sense that I got, but I could be wrong.
Okay. But right. So, like we said, we don't know what's going on next year because we're making a lot of decisions, but it does not impact this year. So, it should not impact not having a permit through the end of this year. I mean, does anybody on the select board have any issue with that?
No.
I don't see
we
it.
didn't have enough staff to cut the lawns last year. We had a seasonal worker that we paid with I forget how we paid for the
ARPA, I
season.
think.
Right.
All I remember is we had a seasonal worker, so he still doesn't have people to cut the lawns, I don't believe, even in 23.
And he had verbal complaints from the union about using volunteers or league or whatever.
But I do remember that was a thing. We paid for a seasonal worker to help cut the lawns last year.
So
So he's in the same shape even in fiscal year 23 without having enough staff.
And I think that's then a larger conversation with the leagues, because baseball's the one that's here right now, but it also impacts soccer in the fall and even the spring. And so that's a larger conversation. It impacts the schools because the schools use the fields mostly that our town leagues maintain. So the schools are out then also. So I think that's...
Yeah, but we have not to interrupt you, Leah, but we have a contract. We have an agreement with the school. They put money into our GF every year that we have to maintain the school, not only the fields.
Right,
And I
but
think a lot of the conversations we've had, and everybody's really hanging their hat on Linda, is how many times it's been said at selectmen meeting and otherwise that the grass is gonna be 2 ticks and 2 But I think because of the dire straits we're in now with coming up on FY24, I think that honestly, what Mr. Miller just said, I apologize, and I'll make sure that we do what we can this year to get it done. But it is
So
also
in our agreement with the schools, it's cutting the fields too? It's not the maintenance of the building itself?
not the building,
No,
it's
but-
the grounds,
Right,
the roads, the structures.
right, that's all included in the
That's
agreement as
including
well.
the agreement, that's 3 times 27, I think it's $27,000 roughly per school per year.
25.
I think it went up, but, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
It's
25
close
is
enough,
okay.
75, it's about 75.
That
And he
doesn't
did,
go
and
to
Joe
the
did
DPW.
state that with the bad cuts, we'll have to hire somebody to do that, because DPW won't be able to do it.
Well, I know that, and I know that we keep discussing about how this is gonna impact everything if we don't have the funds.
Yeah, but also because we weren't able to affect down the road's budget, we didn't fill the CWO, and we had to supplement that department with DPW workers. So there's definitely a manpower labor shortage in the DPW. All I can do is sit here and say, Mr. Miller's right. We're in the FY23 season. We do have, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that part of the charge of the article for the 300th was to supply the seasonal. And I think it was 16 or 17,000, and we spent 7,000 of that because we were only able to get one seasonal. Rough numbers, I'm just saying.
There wasn't
I
part of the
thought-
300th, that was
Yeah.
a separate article altogether, it had nothing to do with the 300th.
Okay, all right.
I think ARPA funded.
Yeah, it was
And it was definitely for seasonal workers, and I think it was for 2, and I think you're right that there was.
He was only able to get one.
Only ended up
But it
being
was
one.
listed in the charge, the article was passed on town meeting floor, that we
Yeah.
could use those funds from the 300th for
Maybe
seasonal.
Maybe it wasn't ARPA. In my head it was ARPA, then it wouldn't have been on the.
I think it was both. Both.
Okay. Anyway, we can figure that out. Sorry.
Either or, all I can do is say we'll make it happen.
All right, play ball.
I'm sorry, John.
I mean,
I'm sorry for misunderstanding.
I just don't think this is.
If we don't have the
Thank you.
staff, we
That's
can't make it
just-
happen.
I know we have to put our foot down, but we need to start with the next fiscal year. Like, so. And hopefully we don't have to, but yeah, we don't want to be there, so much for your 5 minutes. But, all right. All right, speaking of play ball,
Yep, where do you guys want to start?
The top.
pitch it.
So where are we with the,
We're in worse shape than we were last week.
no, what's the number that we would have for the budget at the moment as compared to the revenue at the moment? Are we?
Now with the PEG access, we're $250,000 short.
Okay, so that's what we need to be able to come up with, is 250 grand, $250,000. Okay. And we can agree to the revenue numbers that it's 25,448,867, that's the number? for
No,
revenue.
I need to have the select board please approve this evening so that we can have this done tonight. That we need the 43,878 from ARPA funds to cover the raises that were given last year at the special town meeting. Effective
If the
January
override
1st.
doesn't pass, right?
Correct, yeah. I
Right,
believe so.
but we need that in our revenue just so we have it.
Right. But that's only going to be used if the override isn't passed. I think that needs to be clear. as
Well,
well.
it's the same, but then.
But we need to have that ability
Well, it's
because
different.
I don't care, we need it in the revenue number. I don't
Okay.
care what version, we
I-
need it in there.
I have a question. I think we've had this conversation about not using one-time revenues to balance the budget, and that's exactly what we're doing here, because we don't want to do the cuts. And I'm not at all advocating the cuts at all. And also, the conversation about using stabilization was the same, not using stabilization because that is one-time revenue. We can give it as an option. I've stated many times in our board meetings, I feel like we're just throwing ARPA money here, there, and everywhere and have nothing to show for it. I personally don't remember the conversation in the fall about using ARPA going forward. I remember distinctly saying if we couldn't commit to funding it full time, like forever, then we shouldn't even be having the conversation. I didn't go back and rewatch the meetings as of yet, so I I guess my question is, if we're looking for a budget that is actually using one-time, or sustainable, as in that we're not going to be in this hole every year over year over year, then why are we still trying to plug one-time revenues in? I don't have a problem offering it as a version for a budget that's taking from stabilization and all, and this clearly communicating that we're setting ourselves up next year for that deficit again. So that's my.
Do you have another idea of where to get that $48,000?
I do not.
Okay.
But I guess that's my question is, we are continuing to look for one-time revenues to sustain the budget.
That is correct.
If I may, through the chair, if I remember correctly, it was at another joint meeting in the selectmen's room between finance and board of selectmen way back when. And I believe that at the time, the chair, Carol Benoit, said that if there was no other resource to tap into to make these increases work, and if we absolutely had to,
Yep.
then we would have no choice but to dip into ARPA
That's
for
correct.
that. We don't want to do that. I agree with Leo's statement, we don't want to do that. But
I don't want to either. However, I don't also want to go back to a group of folks that were already hitting pretty darn hard and saying, yeah, by the way, all that raise that we gave you in January, we're taking back. I don't think that's a way to run the town either, but I need you guys to say yes or no to that, because that will affect how we handle this going forward.
I do recall having a conversation saying that we would, we didn't have a formal vote, but I believe the board had a conversation.
It wasn't-
It was on
wasn't-
page
right.
saying that we would step up if that was what was needed at the time. And I agree, I mean, I keep saying too about ARPA funds, that's not the way we want to use it. But, I feel we kind of gave a verbal approval at that point, but.
So what are you looking for? Firm?
Well, if the board is supportive, then make a motion and
I
I'll
will
vote on
make
it.
I'll make a motion of, what was it, 48,000?
43,878.
43,878 to be used only in an emergency for balancing the budget from ARPA.
No, it's not in an emergency. We need the 43,878 from ARPA to cover non-union raises that were given January 1st.
Okay, I didn't misunderstood.
Yeah.
You got that, Tamika? That's my motion.
What's that?
I'm confused.
Okay.
Is this is for this fiscal year or next?
24.
All right.
Adding
The one
it
that
to-
we're working on.
Yes.
Adding it to revenue.
But if everything passes, we don't need to do this.
Right.
If the override goes, we won't need it.
Right.
All right, so that's what Skip's saying.
Right.
That's what I said.
And
Yep.
that should be included in a motion as well.
That's all.
Tamika said that all typed in there. real
Didn't get
nice.
clarified.
Yeah, but you can't say emergency. You gotta say if the override doesn't pass, we need it for the.
And a
because it's an-
specific purpose. So, all right, so we have a motion.
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Clock eye.
Galvin, aye.
Whiteman, I.
All right, and Nichols, aye. And like I say, I agree, this is not how we want to use the funds, but we need to go forward. We have way too many things to jump through right now, in my opinion.
So now we're at 250.
All right, so that's the 250. So now we have to figure out how do we apply the 250 to the expenses to the budget to be able to get us down to a balanced budget.
So the revenue now should be 25,492,745.
Okay. So is there a logical way, I mean, there is a way, I mean, there's a mathematical way, just go ahead and apply a number. Is there a way that we would approach that $250,000 reduction? I mean, other than what we've already done?
There's so few places for it to come from.
Well, didn't we gain more with the insurance?
We did, however, I know from myself, changing it to the 210,809, if there is a claim, we have no way to pay the $10,000 deductible. So my Yes,
It's 5,000 per incident.
5,000, so it's only 5. Oh, good, so I said,
Premium plus the 5,000 deductible.
exactly.
But that's
And
per claim. That's per claim.
I know, but at least so even if we do 10, that's 2 claims,
But
that's still
that
better.
might be an unexpected expense that we're gonna have to come up with. That could happen with anything. I understand where you're going with it, but
Well, I'm just trying to get as much into the budget
Right.
because we're not gonna have free cash when we budget. If this budget goes into play, we're not gonna have free cash to play with.
If I may though, I don't know if this helps. So we don't actually pay the 5,000. They less it from the amount that they pay us for the claim.
Exactly.
So.
But you
we
still
got
need
it.
that 5,000 to make the claim whole,
To
so,
replace whatever.
to
else.
replace or
yeah,
fix
no,
whatever
yeah,
it is.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So is that 210 amount, is that pure premium? Are there any fees or anything on top of that?
No, that is our full premium for FY24, and we do have a $4,000 credit that we can choose to apply to the premium if we so choose for FY24.
Wouldn't we?
Guys, good question again. First, I'd like you to repeat that number you gave me for revenue and how you got that number based on the number you gave me Sunday, last Sunday of 25.
Well, I went off of the new tax levy that Becky sent out.
Which is the same number as you gave
Hold
me
on.
last Sunday.
So I have 25,492,745, which includes the 42,828.
25492,745.
Yep.
The ARP, the ARPA amount was 43,878?
Yes.
Okay, that's not what you just said, so just wanted to clarify.
Okay. So that would add up.
Okay, so now we're fixed with revenue.
You
What do we
concur
need?
before we go on?
No.
Excuse me? Excuse me?
Yep.
Darren asked the question, I'm sorry.
Through the chair, did they concur with the number so we can just start from there that we're all on the same playing
I
field?
don't know.
I think they just did.
Are you in agreement?
You're saying the number you gave me plus the ARPA equals your number of 25,492,745?
745.
Yes. Becky, that adds up? Okay. Yes.
It's
there's
amazing
other-
spreadsheets,
there's other
straight
things that
things,
we
you
still
just
have-
plus and add it in and it does the math for you.
All right, so we're starting from the same level playing field.
On that
You're
number.
not?
On the revenue.
But there's still other things that we.
No, wait. We're talking revenue only right now, at the moment. We all agree that the revenue number is the revenue number. We don't have any disagreement with that.
We don't, based on
Okay.
what.
So
the number
revenue
Karen
is
gave me
done.
plus the ARPA money equals the number that Karen just gave me.
And that's done. We don't have to discuss revenue. Okay.
Okay. So, we have the $4,000 from the TA salary, because it's 126 versus the 130. We have the savings of the 86,042. I included $10,000 for a deductible. Should we only do 5? Finance committee, let me know what you think. I don't think it's a good idea for us to just not have anything in there, because if we have,
You always want to go worst case.
yeah, because for me, at the minute we don't do something, no one's gonna have any, if this budget comes to be, there's going to be no extra, so we kind of have to leave it there to be able to pay for stuff.
So what happens if there's more than 2?
Then we're in trouble.
So what's the difference so the likelihood is that people are going to be sick and.
This isn't sick, this is corporate insurance.
Corporate insurance?
This isn't health insurance, it's liability insurance, corporate insurance.
Ah, okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
It's a GL policy.
Okay. Yeah, so conservative, go with the higher number.
Right, so I took the 210,809 and I added 10,000 to it, so that's 220,809.
And what's the difference then?
After we go through all of these, I'll tell you it's
Okay.
250.
Okay.
So you guys have to tell me if you think the 10 is over. I thought it was a 10,000. I'm sorry, I was misunderstood. I thought it was 10, yes.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
I don't think we actually pay the premium from that, I mean, not the premium, the deductible from that line item.
That's correct.
So it's adding it to that line item, you'd have to add it somewhere else. it's.
But we
because
could
that's
leave it
just the
there and do an
premium.
interdepartmental transfer if there was a plan, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you could do interdepartmental transfers at the end of the
Right,
end of the year.
at the end of the year, just because then that way at least it's there and it doesn't get
Premium, yeah.
misappropriated.
I mean, have we done that before? Or is that just premium?
We've
Because
never, if there's been
built
any
that
claims,
in.
we haven't put any deductible in, so that's,
Correct.
it's been paid
So
from other
it's just-
expenses.
Right. So,
And,
Isn't it easier to keep track of if it's all right there?
that's what I thought, because then that way it sits there and then it's there and
it's just,
it goes to free cash. Where do you,
I like consistency.
well, where would you like it to go?
Where it's been before, it's just been built into.
Which
the
is where?
other
Where is it?
departments. It's in departments, budgets.
So every department budget has their own.
Well, if, and then we run into it, they find it.
Well,
But,
Go ahead.
through the chair, just point of order, last year, there was a decision made to reduce the insurance policy by increasing the deductible from
Yep.
2,500 to 5,000. So
Yep.
for a building account to find $2,500 to fix a repair, that was easy. Now that it's gone to 5,000 per claim, with the rising cost of, heating oil and electricity, there's no money left in any of these building accounts for any damage deductibility.
There's no money left in any of the budgets. That's why I just figured if we left it on there, it's also less ability to have it
Misapplied?
misapplied, misappropriated, absconded with, whatever you want.
that's not a thing that happens.
It's on a line item, they can spend it. So that's a savings of 86,042.
Okay.
Highway purchase services, we had to go up $6,000 for Wachusett's Earth Day. EMS, we had to go up $5,050 for Seth per his contract. It can't go to $1,500, it can only go to $5,050. So that went up. I think we were all in agreement last week that the planning board stipend was gone. That's a credit of $2,500. The Board of Selectmen stipends of $3,000. The Board of Health, $750. Is everybody in agreement so far?
Yep. Do what you gotta do.
Okay, then it was per Gary's concern was taking 10% out of the town planner, which was 82,2456, which, and then,
That was gonna be covered in revolving, right?
yes. Well, we can't say that.
No,
That has to be
Yeah.
voted on by the
Planning
that was the
board.
intent, should I
Right.
say. Okay.
All right, the assessor, I took 10% from the assessor and half of the support. We can only do, if we only want to do half of the support, we can calculate that. And I took 10% from the accountant.
Now, based on your statement, correctly in the minutes from last week, that wasn't decided to do that, so it's just, this is
That is
something-
correct. I'm bringing this up
She's
tonight.
proposing it.
I'm proposing this as just, and that's how I got to the 250 of where we're at
But
now.
we know, because we did have this conversation last week, we know what this would do to our operation if that were to go.
This is better than what was kind of thrown out last week, which was cutting everybody by 50%. I'm not cutting anybody by 50% except the staff, the support staff of the assessor.
The assessor's not cut and the accountant's not cut.
They're at 10%. They're being cut, but not by half. Last week, they were being tossed around of cutting it half. You had brought up last week to cut the town planner in half.
I did.
Again,
And that
with
was
the
only because
intent
everybody else
that
was
it would
being
be
affected,
paid from the revolving.
Basically
but-
by that amount.
Right. So, I'm bringing ideas.
So all
Did
of that
anybody
gets
else
us
to 250?
250, okay.
Because of
We're at
the,
380, whatever.
right, it's the 250 because of the cable having to be added in.
So those are cuts that we would make, or those are budget proposals?
Those are the budget,
cuts,
those are
yeah.
cuts and add-ons that have to be
And
added.
the net of those is a reduction of 250,000?
No,
That gets
that
us
leaves us $250,000 we still have to cut out.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, Peter Crane, I don't understand why we're talking about cable being added to the budget.
Because the revenue is added to the revenue line, we have to keep you in the expenses.
Right, so you get both revenue and...
Right. But you can't put it in the revenue side and not hit it on the expense side, which is what happened. They added on the revenue side, didn't add on the expense
So
side.
it's the amount, it's the same amount
zeros
as
out,
cable,
right.
it's not that you're cutting that.
Exactly.
Okay, I
Exactly.
understand.
So
Thank
that's
you
the
very
reason
much.
why. Yep.
I understood that.
So that's the issue is
You got
that the
Well-
revenue was added in and the expenses weren't in. So that's
Got it. Thank
that's
you.
where the problem is. So
The only thing that I had written down through the chair, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because I think, Lynn, I think you said it last week, because I think in the whole committee, I read about the stipends. So as minor as it is, the only stipend that wasn't touched, I apologize, is that of the town moderator.
okay, we can take that $75.
I'm sorry, but you know what?
Is it really 75?
Yeah.
I think the finance committee agreed last
Well,
week.
no, the consistency is important.
It is, it is.
I
It
just
was
won't
more
have any
just, is
water
that
at
really
the
what
town
it
meeting.
We'll have to bring
There's
our
gonna
own.
be no kidding,
I know.
no water.
I know.
We're gonna have to have Randy walk around with a tin can.
Well, no. Yeah.
So, what do we have then as a proposal to get us to minus 250?
All of those cuts she just said.
No.
Oh no, now we have to do the 250.
Right.
No, but he said to get us to 250.
No, I'm sorry, to get the 250 out that we're.
We don't have
I
anything
have
to
no
send.
proposals, and that's where I stop, because I said, I'm not going any deeper. I've already been skewered by everybody, not anymore. Now you guys get to choose.
I have one question, Becky. When we were talking about the forecasting, I had put in the allowance for abatement number pretty high. It looks like in 21 the actual was 87K that was used. You have 105 in the budget. Could we lower that by 15 comfortably?
I
So
have
we're
to
back
talk
on
to the
revenue?
assessors on that one.
Okay. But there's potential that that could be lowered. I mean, we don't have an actual number for the last time that was, the last one looks like FY21. We don't have an actual for FY22 that was used there.
Find my sticker. This yellow sticky.
That's not what's on this list.
It's maybe 10 grand, but
It's something.
It's something.
In FY23, she gave me, what we've issued so far this year is $66,325.
so theoretically we
So-
have some room in there because that won't, the rest of the
Right.
year won't get us to 80 as well.
Right.
So there's probably 15K in there.
Maybe.
If this ends up happening, it's gonna be a shit show anyway, so
Right.
might as well just start throwing other shit in the,
Well, I mean, that's the whole idea here. You have to be able to make a proposal for where it would come from.
right.
That's the idea.
So I propose that we reduce the allowance for abatements by 15K as well. Which still gives us 3K more than the last actual we had.
Correct.
So it's, has some wiggle.
To justify
See,
it.
it's
By
because it's a
10K?
reduction in
15.
revenue. So it's just a reduction in revenue. So the revenue now will go up by 15.
So I know your comment last week about not pitting the town against the schools, but should we be proposing a new number for the school?
Can we,
Charge.
since the school committee voted
Well, I
on
mean,
and
we
approved
can,
the budget?
we could propose, I mean, we've done it before.
Only on the contribution part.
Yeah, the state
And-
assessment.
And,
Yeah.
and the contribution part should be, in my opinion, on the override. So either the override passes or we don't. In my opinion, I'd say either it goes through an override or we don't do it. I don't know how you'd want to budget that if
So
you
the
don't cut
minimum,
it.
but the minimum
But-
contribution is what, 700?
7,000.
No, it's more than that, right? Isn't it more than that?
It is more than that.
Well, the minimum, I don't have, it's not
Yeah.
broken out here.
The minimum contribution?
We don't
Yeah,
have
the
was like-
minimum local
It was like
contribution.
13 million or something like
Yeah, I
that.
think
The
it's total
difference was like
15.
1.5 million from the minimum to what they're asking.
The only problem
roughly.
is that in order for us to successfully do that,
Yeah.
we have to get another town to stand up with us.
Totally understand that.
But I think that tying it to the override number one puts everybody in the game.
I agree.
and to try to get the support that everybody understands.
I agree.
And if it doesn't pass, and we have to, then we're gonna have to, it's gonna be a whole nother situation, which you'll have to have another backup plan. But I think it's important that it be tied in with all the other departments.
The only problem with saying that is because it's almost the entire override, it puts the picture of the override as entirely going to the school. We're basically, it sounds like you could make the argument that we're doing an override for the school then. I just want to be careful.
Well, I don't know.
Not the minimum local contribution,
no,
minimum
no,
local.
No, I know,
Yeah.
the additional, so if we're saying the override
So-
passes, we're paying the additional between.
I mean, you could break it down to say the increase from last year's to this year's as being, right? You can
Yeah.
break down that, put that on the override.
Yeah,
There's gotta be some game, it's having an impact on our budget, so it should be part of this whole plan.
right.
That, if we're gonna pay that additional money to the school, then it should be along with, I don't know if the finance committee agrees with that, that was just a suggestion
I'm
and a
in
comment.
agreement, I'm in agreement on that. However, we can't affect a change to that number without having another town that's gonna vote with us on that change.
Well, there are towns that are questioning it, so I don't know if there aren't other towns that won't pass the school budget,
And
because,
we've been burned before where towns, we've
Yep.
gone in
Yeah.
thinking, feeling confident that
Yep.
we're gonna be one of two,
And what do we have, 3 weeks left?
So if we don't do.
I'm not being negative Nelly, I'm just being realistic here. We got a very, very short time window to try to work with another town to say we can affect the change on that number.
and we're not even trying to force it, we're hoping that if people understand the situation, that they're gonna pass the override.
Right.
But it's the families, the young families that are impacted too, need to understand that the school is part of the whole budget. So, to get the support of everybody, it's gotta affect everybody. And we're not trying to affect everybody, but they need to understand it is.
No, but that's an excellent point. The folks that would vote for the override have got to understand that what they're voting for is part of the support to the schools. And that if you don't show up for the meeting, for the town meeting, or you don't show up for the ballot, then you're effectively saying, I don't want to do the override, and now you're forcing something else. So we're looking at adjusting the minimum contribution, but not eliminating, just adjusting.
Not the minimum, we cannot affect the minimum local contribution.
discretionary
The discretionary operational assessment we
Okay.
can affect.
The assessment, I'm sorry.
Yep.
So we're looking to affect that by a certain amount. And either we do it and, we stay consistent with what we're doing with the other departments, or, why would the school, in essence, be any different than DPW or police or fire or whatever?
So just FYI, the discretionary assessment that we pay towards what you said is 4.6 million this year.
So, like I said, we're not gonna try to tie the whole thing to it, but the impact it's having, the increase this year should be felt through all departments, and the school is one of the departments that we're working with.
So what do you have what the increase was? Is that part of that process?
I can find it.
It's not,
In the
it's,
discretionary?
yeah.
No, well, I think he's asking the total increase.
Well, what the difference
Just
between last year and
discretionary.
this year, the increase
Oh.
this year?
In total
That I
or
don't have,
discretionary?
'cause I don't know.
Discretionary.
I don't know what the discretion.
464,000.
Oh, sorry.
460, yeah.
400,000, $500,000. So,
In order for us to affect that change, we need to have another town vote with us.
Right, but to get the support, and they understand that the risk of them not getting the school money, it has to be tied to the override.
Right.
Because nobody's gonna care if it's not gonna affect
I
it.
agree wholeheartedly.
Right.
However, we can't take the 250 from that and go, we're
Right.
done.
No,
That's not how
I'm not just saying that, but I
It
say.
actually adds another iteration that we need to go to
Right.
town meeting.
Every-
And last
every-
week, we were trying
right.
to cut that number
Yeah.
of iterations
But there's
down.
gotta be skin in the game for everybody, because
Yeah.
people need to understand.
So
it.
what are the mechanics of making that happen? Is it the way that the override is worded, or is it the way that the warrant article is worded? And is it too late?
It's the warrant
to do
article.
either one of
It's-
those?
Right, no, it's the warrant article, so
And
as
it's
long
not
as,
too late to
when we
make sure
present
that-
the budget, when you present the budget, you would say that it's tied to the override.
Okay, Tamika?
can I just kindly request that we have some sort of definitive language of the direction that the board wants to go, because next Thursday night, you're meeting to place the warrant articles, and I'm meeting with Attorney Goldberg next week to figure out, finalize the language. So after tonight, there can't be any, I have to know.
I don't think we had to have final numbers, we just have to
Not
have
the final numbers, but
Right.
I need to know
The
what
structure.
you
Right,
want it to
right, as far,
be.
as far as whether it's tied to the override,
Correct.
right.
Correct, yep, and I am gonna need the numbers within a reasonable amount of time, because then I have to write a motions
Right.
document and things like that.
Well, I think Lyndon's got an excellent idea that everybody's got skin in the game.
Yep.
It's like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. They can not come. They don't even have to vote. They can vote negative, and the school's still gonna get their money.
Right.
So,
Well, maybe, I mean, if for some reason it doesn't pass our town, there's other towns that are voting later, and then they may step up. A lot of towns are not happy with the school budget and things
Well, we
that
could-
have happened with it.
so instead of doing what you're saying, we could vote negative for their budget.
I don't want to not support, this is not the year to fight and not support the school, but I feel like what we're doing right here, they need to be impacted as well and have some kind of a tie to what's going on. So I'm not trying to.
I don't disagree with you, but they don't have to. It doesn't matter what they do; they're going to win.
That you don't know that we've
know.
defeated the school budget before,
But
and other towns may intend on not supporting the assessments because they were not happy at the meeting. Typically we have a lot of meetings with the town administrators and stuff talking about the school budget, but if the school is tied to it and you want to get the word out and the school finds out that it's tied to the override,
Yeah.
the PTOs are probably going to send out things
sure
and say,
will.
please support the school budget.
And that makes the parents turn out to vote.
Right.
Yeah.
Support the override.
Right. Right.
You support
Right.
the
Support-
budget by
right.
supporting the override.
Right.
So we need to write it that way, and then we still need to come up with $250,000 of other cuts.
Right. I just wanted to make sure that they're in the game with all the rest of us, as far as, what we need to try to do. If we want to fully fund our departments, we need to look at all of them, and they all need to be contingent on getting the, sufficient funds that we need, so.
If I may, Karen, I think we're taking a risk, hoping that the PTOs will get the word and spread it. I think if we really want that demographic to vote, we have to be proactive. We have to do something if we're going to try to get those folks to vote for it. How do we do that?
Please stick
Right.
with the budget tonight. We
Right.
can't have this and how we're gonna get it out there, because we keep going round and round and round. We can't spend the money unless we have a political action group that can spend the money.
So let's ask the question. I mean, it's a fair question to ask, but when do we do that? When do we talk through?
Well, I think we need to have a final iteration of the budget so
No,
that
no,
we can start talking.
So I'm just saying magic
worst case
happens
scenario.
today, and we have a final iteration of the budget tonight. Let's just say it magically happens.
Yeah.
When do we have the conversation that says, okay, how do we
Tomorrow.
get that information out?
it's got to be next Tuesday or whatever before.
Well, no, I mean, you guys can decide whether you're gonna tie some of the school funds to the override, so that we can set the warrant. And then you can decide how much you think is inappropriate. You can make any kind, you make a 10% cut on the department, make a 10% cut on the increase in, whatever you guys wanna do.
Has the town administrator's office gotten in touch with the PTOs and asked them to put something through?
I've asked several times to be given the go-ahead to do that, and I do have contacts, but I have not, because nobody has said that I can move forward with that plan.
I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't say,
Right, I mean, the PTOs function independently, so
Right.
they can, I mean, if they're aware of the situation in town, they can do whatever they want.
Right, exactly.
Just like some of the other departments are.
just to
I mean,
let
the
them
other,
know.
Friends of the library or whoever.
Right, Friends of the
else are doing
Library and all that
The
kind of
meetings
stuff.
that people are holding, whatever, so that they have the ability to do that, as long as the town is not telling people how to vote for the override, and just telling them the options is from the town. The PTOs, the Friends, they have a little bit more ability to have an impact, because they can specifically say this is what's gonna affect us personally or whatever, so.
So how does that conversation affect the 250? Can we get it? Does it
Doesn't
change it?
affect it at all.
Wait,
Doesn't really affect.
what, Well, it does in a way that you would say that if the override doesn't come, it would come out of the school. But you need to, you have to have a backup plan of how we're gonna cover that somewhere else. So, and understanding that,
Well, we have to have a backup plan for everything.
right.
I mean, there's stuff
Well,
coming.
I know,
everywhere.
we've had as many as 4 or 5 budgets before, and it's
Yeah.
not fun, and it just, it's always a what if, and it can change in a second, so.
You had 4 or 5 budgets, and something came up on the town meeting floor that threw the whole town meeting into a tizzy one time.
I know.
All right, so I think Darren's idea would be that we go back to this 250 and figure that out.
Yeah, we're at 234 now if we take the 15 from him.
So unless there is a.
Did no one else bring any cuts? Did no one else bring any cuts?
No, because honestly, I don't know what.
I'm on a
Cuts to be able to make
7-person
it.
team here, and I feel like I'm the only one making any cuts.
And I think you're right. But the thing is, I don't know how to go in and be able to affect specific items. I think that we should be more general.
We're not hitting specific items. I'm just getting amounts and how I got the amounts.
Well, that's ends up being a directive in essence. I think that we should be able to say that we have a $250,000, $235,000 balance. It's a percentage of the total, and that all the budgets have to be adjusted by that amount.
Okay.
I mean, that's the way to be honest, that's the way it's been done in the past.
Yeah.
We come up with a number,
Okay.
we try to, try to be
So if we want to do
positive
that,
about it.
How else do you do it?
Right.
Well, that's
So
the
you gotta
point.
figure out a percentage and say other departments, a certain
You
amount
just
should
say
be
that
cut.
each department makes up X% and they have to
Right.
take out.
They have to absorb their percentage of the total, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, that's the way we've always
I hate
done
to say it, but we're at that point because there's really no one place. I mean,
Okay.
the only thing that we can go back to talking about if we want to is looking at half of the planner's accountant assessor, but I'm not sure that that's worth it or has value, so I don't think
Well,
that's
those
a
You
good
do, you need
idea.
those
Yeah.
people.
there's
Right.
only one person in those jobs.
So Karen has all the experience in the finance committee. And so she can look at these things and say, this is the way it should be. I can't
Sure.
look at it.
And my name's Mud in town for crying out loud at this point.
I don't think that's necessarily the truth, and I was making that
Oh, it
point
is.
at the last meeting, and I was saying that really, we don't have the knowledge of what it takes to run this town. We have knowledge of finance, maybe, some of us, and we can help as much as we can, but the person who has the experience and the knowledge of how to run this town is the town administrator. So the cuts and where they should be coming from really should be coming from the town administrator or the departments themselves.
And the departments,
Correct.
town administrator and departments. But that's the point. That I think they've gone through and they've done everything that they feel that they can. So now we need to be able to take it back and say, we're short. So you guys have to do more to this percentage. And then be done with it. They're not gonna like it. Nobody's gonna like it.
So there is another $5,500 we can take by taking out the Board of Selectmen Secretary, the FinCom Secretary, and the Board of Appeals Secretary.
And we take our own notes.
And every board needs to start taking their own notes. I'm not saying that's a good thing to do. I'm not saying that at all. I did it for 5 years. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I just want to say, so for some of those boards, I do a lot more than just the
I know.
minutes. So you would have to have somebody that would take over permitting.
Yep. Over permitting, writing the letters, reaching out,
Decisions.
all of those things. Lyndon knows I did the minutes and he did all the other reaching out. And that's scheduling the meeting rooms, all of that kind of stuff.
But
You guys tell me what you guys want to do. I didn't want to go there, but that is another $5,500.
Well, but wouldn't that be the choice of the TA? I mean, she works for him, right?
Well, she works for each board too,
Well, so it'd be the
Town
decision.
so each board should.
Each
So the
board.
board would, so as a finance committee, we would have to say that we would look not to use Tamika and not pay for that, but she may still be doing things for the other boards and still be around.
And we'd be cutting the budget for those things, so.
Cutting the budget for us.
And everyone else. It's
And
already,
everybody
that's-
else.
yeah. We made it clear that that was our direction and what we're
Okay.
doing.
I mean, just like the stipends, you didn't go and ask the boards if they were okay with you cutting all their stipends.
Yeah.
It
It's not,
stinks,
but,
no
and
choice.
people aren't gonna like it, people aren't gonna like any of this.
So that's the tact, is that if we make a proposal for one thing, it's across the board. If it's shared, it's effective across the board.
Because some of the boards aren't a problem for you, Janika, because some of them, they pay you from the revolving funds. So like the Conservation Commission, you're still fine with them. And the planning board, yeah, so I mean, but that means that someone has to have the fun job of either taking minutes the night of, or having the privilege of watching the meetings again to take the minutes.
Well, I mean, the fact is that we do have that electronic capability to be able to not have to do it at the meeting.
I did it for 5 years. It's a lot of work.
No, but he's just saying it is recorded.
It is, it's recorded now, which makes it easier, but it's.
And because a big part of it is that you're not really able to participate
Right.
fully.
Right.
if you're
Taken,
taking
yeah.
minutes. So, I mean, it is better than the old days when you would have to actually just be doing
Somebody has
those.
to step out of the meeting. And it's-
So we've essentially got two choices, as far as I see it. One is, we say we need a across-the-board cut of X percentage from each department,
Yeah.
or we need to go and get this in large chunks out of either entire departments or large chunks of several departments.
Or stabilization.
Well,
Because you haven't touched it.
this is separate.
This is separate.
We already have a stabilization
Right, that's already dictated and done.
But they
budget.
need to have something like if that, it's a 2/3 vote, so if it doesn't go
I
through,
understand,
they need to have a
understand. This is the
fallback.
lesser amount.
Forgetting
but
that
any
everyone's
other
worried about the
issues that came through
48,
for
how about the
stabilization?
$560,000 at the
That's a bigger
stabilization cut?
Right.
Couldn't. Yeah.
I think if you're gonna go across the board and make those cuts, I think the bottom line is there's departments you're gonna have to close. Because if they make any more cuts on top of the cuts they've already made, they literally can't function. They
But
can't
if
operate.
the override doesn't pass,
Yeah.
things are closing anyway. There's nothing that we could, there's no effect that could be made on this budget if the override doesn't pass. Things are gonna have to close, gonna have to cut.
But we don't have anything closed right now. We took that off
We
the
don't.
table. But
But-
I'm saying in the, if you're saying to go back to these departments that have already cut their budgets as deeply as they can, the
Right.
only places they have left to cut them is gonna prevent them from being able to do business. So we might as well just say now to pick the departments that we're gonna have to close, because to now push this off another week and go back to these departments, we just don't have time.
So do we wanna start suggesting department closures?
You tell me what you want to do, because
I don't wanna do that.
Well, I think if I may, I think the town administrator's office had already submitted one proposal with that, and I
That still use stabilization.
No, I think,
I think that could be ways around using stabilization for that. But I'm not a proponent of that, but I am also not a proponent of decimating our entire town departments so that the town cannot function. And that's where we are, I feel. And so I think if this is the route that the town chooses to go, then we have to make really hard decisions. And if we are talking about essentially decimating every single office in town hall and every single office in the annex so that government can't function, then we might as well be closing a building or two, or closing the buildings and maintaining staff by appointment, or being creative on that end to preserve staff, but not the level of services that the public may be accustomed to, without chopping ourselves off, not even just at the knees, but cutting our heads off because we have no bodies to do the work that needs to be done, is my unpopular opinion. Sorry.
And we've already, to that, Lee, we've already had a department affected because someone has given notice. And as I think I told you and others, the word on the street is others are looking, and I don't blame them. Everybody's afraid, they're scared.
Sure.
The town is scared.
Just so that the town administrator can tell the departments, this is not a job that the finance committee relishes.
Right.
We've been doing this for years, and it stinks.
I have better words for it, but they know how I feel
I
about
can't
it.
say it on camera. But we've
You've
done
been through it
this.
plenty times, Gary. You would come in and we would say, you've got to cut a
Give me
certain
the- yeah, so
percentage,
you have to
and
give me
you
this
just
amount
had to
of
do
money. I
it,
get
and
it.
that's what
I
we
get
did.
it.
We did
Been there,
it,
done that.
right,
And we've
many
been-
times,
Yeah.
every time.
year.
every time.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, so one of the original ideas was closing the library and closing the,
Council on Aging.
Council on Aging.
right, community center. So that's completely off the table now, or are we still?
That was completely off the table 1 week after.
Okay,
The week that the school came, it was decided by the town administrator and everybody else in the room that that was not the route to go.
okay.
If we could manage.
Right.
I think honestly, it sounds like we're back to that having an
Well,
option.
there would
Right.
still be cuts in every department and potentially others.
Right, but I just, you know, and I know it's gonna be a hard decision, but in a town with the full-time employees, and you guys all know this, but they're, you know, we're understaffed, underpaid, and overworked. I think if we have to do everything we can to make sure our full-time employees are taken care of, because, and I know that's easier said than done, but we're gonna lose more people, qualified people, and that's scary. So if it means closing buildings, even temporarily, till we can figure out what's going on, I think we have to do
It
that.
won't be temporarily. It'll
It's for an
be,
entire year.
it's for a fiscal year, it won't be
Right.
It's not
temporarily.
gonna get any better. There's no way
No.
it's gonna get better next
No,
year.
it's gonna be
if-
tough.
If things don't change.
And closing a building isn't gonna save a lot of money. It's gonna save some money,
Something, yeah.
because the electricity is still gonna be on, the heating is gonna be there.
But not having a clerk, or not having an accountant, or not, that's a lot worse, in my opinion,
Yeah.
than not being able to go check out a book. And I
Yeah.
know a lot of people are gonna hate me for saying that, but it's the truth.
Okay.
That's my opinion,
Yeah.
you know.
Not getting an ambulance.
Not getting an ambulance, moving police officers. So there are, I think we do have to
having a
make the
fire
tough
house put
decisions,
out.
like Karen said. We have to be the bad guys here. I hate to say that, but we have to make the prioritize.
There's 10K we can take from town council and just,
Pray.
Austin, you're not gonna be able to spend that much money with the legal. You got friends that are lawyers? Start using them. So that's 10 grand we can take. I mean, I'm not saying that's a good thing, but at this point, that's,
Yeah, we're past the.
Karen,
Yeah.
you asked us for cuts, and,
Yep.
and I know you're probably not gonna like this.
yep. I don't have to like it.
How about Mr. Town Administrator? Where would you take the 200 and whatever we need, 234?
We're down now.
Well, 230.
225.
224.
Where would you affect the 225? In the spirit of cooperation, because if you want us to do it, it's gonna.
Well, it's not you to do it, it's us to do it.
Right, but so
Us.
No.
do you have any recommendations in any one of the large department budgets that you would take 225 from?
The only place you can take budgets from which doesn't affect public safety or services or maintenance of the town is to reduce the hours of the library and the community center, council on aging. And I don't want to do that. Everybody knows how I feel. I
Yeah.
brought that budget to you the first time because the first charge was no stabilization, no free cash. That's all I could do. And I hated doing it, and you all know that. And we all hate doing it, and we all know that. But a suggestion to do, I'm just gonna talk to Becky and Austin, and Tamika would certainly have to be aware of this, and certainly the Board of Selectmen. How much money do we save if I leave now? When Mr. Saginawood starts?
But that's this year's budget and not next year's budget.
That's this year's.
It doesn't matter.
It's not this year's budget.
But I would
it's
roll
not-
Next
in
year's
free
budget.
cash
It's now.
eventually.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, but it-
Right.
Right, but we're
We-
worried about
using
next year.
ARPA funds to pay for it.
Sorry.
Yeah, don't, it's a nice thought, but that doesn't help.
Well, I'm just, I don't want all these other departments to suffer any more than they already have, so I'm grasping at straws.
So I guess,
I'm very optimistic that the 2.5 is gonna pass.
I think we
People
all
have to know.
Well,
I think we have to be
I would-
optimistic,
yeah.
realistic and optimistic are two different
We
things.
need
I
to
would
get everybody
be,
on
I would
board,
use the word
including the school.
hopeful. We're all hopeful that the 2.5 override passes. I think, because otherwise, if it passes, everything is, we're back to doing things as a legitimate town government. If it doesn't pass, then we're doing things that are going to just devastate the town government and its ability to be able to fund.
Devastating to the town.
Pretty simple.
You can't, I can't go to fire, police, DPW and say, halftime, you gotta close halftime. You can't.
But if it doesn't pass, that's what's gonna happen. There's
Well,
no
they've already
choice.
cut as much as they can. If it doesn't pass, then what you're affecting, Peter, as you know, is every other department you have in town.
So,
And they will all close. Town hall will close. Annex will close.
If that's
We
the
won't have
case.
anybody to get building permits.
Yeah, no,
We're
I
gonna have
understand.
people going rampant building
Well,
structures.
don't use that as an example, because people would be more than happy. That's
You
a
gotta
bad
put it on the
example.
table with
I
that.
No, I know.
That sounds nice.
They
So,
don't think it's a good thing.
so
Smart growth.
Gary, you go on record to say that you cut as much money as we can from public
Is
safety.
that yours?
From what, yes, I will.
Okay.
And DPW.
Okay?
If you were to come out with me, Darren, and say, sake of argument, round number, give me $15,000 to each department, we got no place to
Don't do
take it
anything
from.
drastic, or I'm gone.
Because you're either gonna, it's gonna get to the point of you're reducing services and supplies and keeping the manpower the other way around. So you've got no services, no supplies, and people to do it, or no people to do it and still get the services and supplies.
So as much as this bothers me to say this, I think we gotta think about closing those two buildings, Karen, and using
That's not,
stabilization
don't
funds.
look at me for Karen. That's finance committee, it's not Karen.
You are Karen, you are Karen, we know that, he said Karen.
Now,
It's devastating.
there's also some the police department, most of their cuts were cut from things that were one-time extras. So there is some increase there over this year. I don't know if there's anything left there to take.
Is the
Staffing, I mean, it's
is the,
staffing.
is the increase, well, the fire department's not gonna have staffing on Saturdays, so is the police department affected the same way?
Yes, because you'll have reduced patrols. If you got a 2-man shift on the overnight, or 3-man, you're gonna go down to 1.
Okay. Just make, I just
I
want.
know.
When you run
I know.
into a safety issue.
Well, it's.
Big
yeah.
time safety
Well,
issue.
and it's a hard thing to say, is the fire department getting this and the police department getting that? I'm just trying to ask if there's a way that,
Understood, and you're also gonna be reducing response time, for instance, on snow and ice. Because we're not gonna be able to call the staff in and pay the overtime to do the job. So you're gonna have to, like it was in the old days, don't drop a plow unless there's 3 to 4 inches on the ground. And if you wait to call staff in when till there's 3 to 4 inches on the ground, you're screwed.
okay,
If I
the
may,
guy who
what
knows.
about support staff in that department? There was no cut in support staff for that department.
Right, she just went down to, she just went down
lost the
to
COLA, but-
where it was, yeah, she lost the COLA and the
But
steps.
the hours are still at 40.
That is correct, there was no cut,
So that's
because
like
they were
less-
given an amount and they made the cuts.
But
That was, don't go like this, that cut was made by him well before it was brought here, so I don't wanna hear
why
it.
can't that cut be made now if we're in dire straits and all support staff has been cut?
Anyone wanna make that suggestion?
I think the finance committee should look at closing the buildings.
Okay,
Not Karen, the finance committee.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think we're
using the stabilization fund to do what we can and realizing that we're gonna be even more up the river next year.
oh, if we use stabilization, we're gonna be at five
Twice the
sixty.
situation.
We're at 560 next year, structural deficit.
But how else do we do it?
We need to pass a 2.5 override, because a 560 structural deficit is
No.
insurmountable.
All right, so I don't wanna use the stabilization fund then, because of that.
I
So
agree.
where else are we gonna do? We gonna tell the police department they're gonna have to cut a guy? Tell the fire department, give me an idea. If you say you don't wanna use stabilization, give me an idea.
I don't think it's
I'm just asking.
I've done pages of work on this budget. I'm now looking at the other 5 of you sitting in this room to help me get there. Because I've made all of them, everything is Karen this, Karen that, Karen this, Karen that. Karen's not doing it. It's the finance committee.
So-
I drew the line at the 250. I'm done.
So I think that the answer is that we're going to have to provide guidance back to the departments as to what they're going to have to do to be able to get to a balanced budget.
You don't have enough time.
If I may.
No, we do, we do.
No, we do not.
We don't.
We don't have enough time to,
Not in 3 weeks, bud.
no,
The
I'm not
numbers.
talking about going back and just, here's a number, here's your number is 12. Take it out, take 12
Tamika
out.
just said, they don't have the time.
They've got the time. They
No,
can
we
do
I don't
it.
understand.
We lost a week. We didn't even have a meeting. We lost a week. This would have been done a week ago, hopefully. Or
I think
we
what
put the
Peter's
finishing
saying is
touches
when
on.
you get the bottom line on the department, you guys, if that's what you decide to do, then the department's gonna have to figure out to get to that
Yeah.
bottom line, so.
Right, but some of those departments are going to have to close. They
So,
will not be
see,
able to function
see what you're
with any
doing, you're saying,
additional heads.
I think that if we go ahead and we affect this, we're gonna close, we're gonna do something bad. The fact of the matter is that if we don't get the override, it's not a question of what anybody's gonna do. It's a fact that that's gonna happen. Fait accompli if the override doesn't happen.
I understand that, but there's a certain level of government that still has to operate.
How do you do that without money? Who's gonna volunteer to do those things that must keep the government open?
But
Who's gonna
that's
do it?
why the cuts, I guess, can't be equitable across all departments, because there's departments that simply will not be able to stay open.
Okay.
So with the medical change that was made, is this 978 a good number?
It is.
And that's not with any extra? Okay, just want to make sure of that.
If I may,
Mm-hmm.
it's not popular and it's not something I'm advocating, but I don't know if anybody's been following. This is an issue across the state. And Greenfield ended overnight police patrols, and they have the state police in running overnight shift. They have an ancillary command center and everything. I think that that's where towns are being forced to go. It's not anything popular. It's another option. I don't know what the cost is, cost savings is, but there's a lot of articles.
I'd stop them during the day.
I think
Or
Hardwick
even
had
at
to
night.
go move their police to another town or something like that. too. We're not alone. We're not special.
I think we're covering OCAM now too, I mean, a lot of times, right?
Not for police.
Not for police, they're not covering OCAM, they still have part-timers out there? You guys are though, right?
We're contracted, they pay us.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
okay.
pay us annual. And it's in the tune
So can I go?
of, between what they pay us and what we collect,
Tell
over
me what you wanna do.
$150,000.
No.
So,
I would like, am I correct in saying, through the chair, that the TA has no recommendations to cut the extra 225? As we're working as a group? Right? You're at a standstill.
We're now at 290.
So we have two choices. We either close a couple buildings, which that option is not good, and we use stabilization fund, or we go to there's just two. And the second one is, we use Peter's percentage and we go through everybody and we say, it's for your size department and your load, it's 3%. For you, it's 5%. For you, it's this. For you, and we get to the number that we got to get. And I agree with Tamika. That's going to stink. Departments are going to close. But I don't know that we have a choice. And if it's closing, as much as I don't like this idea that the police department can't go at night and the fire department can't run an ambulance on the weekends, I can't. I don't know where else to go.
Well, it sounds like the police not patrolling at night would still come at a cost because we'd have to have we'd have to pay the state police to come.
I don't
in.
know what the agreement, it would be something to be looked at. It's clearly a significant cost savings because, the police chief, it says, this article says that police chief had a 6% budget cut, last year, and then they can't staff it and with continued budget cuts. So I don't know the details. It's out there. I think there's other communities that are considering cutting back on public safety because they have these big gaps. And if you're not willing to close buildings, you can't, I'll say it again, you can't close or create such dysfunction in the core offices that also need to perform actual government without, I don't know.
And to do that, Leah, to that note, you're still gonna, it'd be an extra 120, probably 120, 150,000 for the 1 year.
Just bite your
All right,
tongue.
so-
Get used to the taste of blood in your mouth.
Austin, you want to payroll there?
No, I'm just.
No. No, not yet.
I'm kidding,
He's
buddy.
just
I'm
here
ready.
so he can listen to
He's
it.
really saying that, did I sign that contract?
All right.
What did I want?
All
Did I get
right,
myself
so I
into?
think the finance committee, as a finance committee, we have two choices right now. We either close the buildings and go through stabilization, or we go down the thing, go down the budget, we figure out which one we want to cut, we know that, and take the best guess percentage to get to the bottom line, and that's where we go. I think we can go around the mulberry bush all night long, but we got two choices here.
Well, your first option, you still had stabilization being used. We need
Right.
to take that off the table, because if that's not gonna get approved, it's not gonna get approved. So we need the bottom of the barrel option. That's what we're looking for here.
And
No stabilization.
If I may, what if buildings closed, but some staff maintains hours and goes to an appointment-based services, or something that's not just buildings that are open? I don't know, I'm trying to think outside of the box and also like preserve staff and services to the populations that need those services, while also allowing government and the rest of town to have some public safety and DPW support.
But if you're reducing the hours of the staff, you're gonna do that.
I mean, what buildings could do that too? I mean, realistically, where could you even do that?
Is it? Yeah, well.
So, I mean, my thought, like, I don't know what you're thinking, and I mean, talking about something like Council on Aging, closing that building really wouldn't save much money if you're keeping on the director, because the director is the bulk of that budget. And when I say bulk, I think it's more than half of that total budget. So closing that building doesn't necessarily, so like, what building specifically would you think about doing that with, or where? Well, we're at the point where we need to make that choice. I know we don't know, but.
Right. And I don't have those numbers. I don't know what it costs to operate that building or this or town hall or the annex or you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it takes.
I would guess it's not substantial.
I get an idea.
You close this building, there will be no meeting space.
That's not true. This is a town building.
It is governed by Mass General Law by the library trustees.
I think the upstairs is.
No, I think.
No,
did we go
it's
through
the
this, Gary?
building.
You had town council look at
It's
it. They
the
control the
building.
They control the, okay.
No,
The
all of
building.
Oh, perfect.
We've gone through that many
Yes, we have.
times, so.
Well, can we have meetings in the annex?
Have meetings across the bar.
You could, no, the annex is not big enough to have, not a
No?
public meeting.
Well, could you close the annex? Does it pull the full amount out of the public building maintenance budget by building?
And then force everybody into town hall.
Yeah.
Just a question.
Yep.
We sold Rutland Heights.
Mhm.
Is there any way, some emergency way, that we can take some of the proceeds of that sale and apply it to free cash so we can get through this year?
You can't put that to free, if you were to do free cash, you gotta wait till next October, November.
So how in God's name did that money get locked up? Is that a state thing?
Yeah.
But Darren, you basically do the
again,
same thing as
it's where you-
stabilization.
You're
It's-
kicking the can
Well, I'm just saying,
No,
but
I
it's
know,
it's not
I
the-
know where you're going for, and we can't do that, but it's still gonna be the same double problem next year, so.
Yeah.
It's still one-time
But it would be
funds.
free cash instead of stabilization, which
Right,
is
right.
not a 2/3.
Right, but I know we can't do that, but we're
Yeah.
still gonna be in a bad situation.
So there's no way, Becky?
No.
We're putting it into, it's the funds from the sale of property. So it goes into a special, it's governed under Chapter 44, Section 63. It goes into a separate fund that can be used to do things with that you would have normally borrowed money for. We got an opinion from our attorneys that it's a sale of property, has to go under this Chapter 44, Section 63, instead of 53, which is regular free cash, so that we can use it, the remaining proceeds from the sale can be used for any purpose which the town is authorized to borrow for a term in excess of 5 years, or the town may use the funds to pay debt service payments on any bond used on the acquisition of land.
So I guess my question is why is it going to is this a state law that says it has to go to this fund?
The sale.
The sale of property has to go to this fund, so there's no way around that. Okay, I'm done talking about that one then.
You're grasping, that's good.
The other thing, just be prepared on floor for anything to happen, because there are some pretty big groups that are gonna fight closing this building and doing things, and you can change anything on the floor, and then if they change that, be ready to come up with that money from somewhere else. Do you agree, Karen?
Oh, we just postponed the town meeting
I-
until
That's
like
what I would do.
August, and not worry about it. We go into a 1/12 budget and put some pain on everybody, and then, you know, it's miserable, and then maybe we won't have all this problem.
Well, it's not.
Anybody, I'm just saying.
No, I don't know.
Huh?
It's gonna be
That's not
an
realistic
awfully
to do.
long, it's
I know that's
gonna
not-
be more than one day.
Unless the override
This town meeting
passes.
could easily be more than one day,
case.
with all the things that are going on.
Postpone
But
the meeting.
they've done it before,
Make a
they've
difference.
voted to take money for the library before,
They
and
did
if
last
it's
year.
gonna close,
Yep.
Well, it's
there's gonna be people on the floor that are gonna proposing changes for everything that we're talking about.
Right.
Because what I don't wanna do is play games, because we're not gonna get support for an override if we're not totally transparent. So we keep giving mixed messages on everything that we're gonna do. So we need to come up with a plan, be honest, and make sure people understand.
Okay.
So I
Because
guess
I
that's
kinda feel
one,
like
too.
that
So let's
baseball
make it
thing was
easy.
on, I understand
Let's
that's
make it
where we're
easy.
going.
Just do the two
But
and a half
that's gonna
override,
send a
doesn't
bad
pass, we go to a
message,
1/12.
because it seems like we're playing games with people to say, this is what's gonna happen. We don't wanna be threats, we wanna be transparent and be real. This is why we need an override, and this is what's gonna happen, because
Actually, like
it's
that.
gonna be a nightmare on the town floor.
So I have all right, so then that eliminates that one, so now we have.
Well, I'm not trying to eliminate
No,
anything, I just want.
no, I know what's gonna happen, because we've been there when the library does that.
I know.
So we have option, then realistically, the finance committee has one option, kind of. That's take a percentage off everything, but then there was a new option. What if we went to a 1/12 budget? What Karen just said. As painful as that would be,
If you don't present a budget, and then you just go, you mean without having a budget, and just, it forces a 1/12?
But what I'm saying is, we put up the 2.5 override. If that doesn't pass, then we're out. And then we gotta figure out something else.
Well, and to your point, Lyndon, if what we do,
I mean,
every
we could still
proposal-
have another town meeting in time to not be at the 1/12.
If every proposal that we put
Austin's,
forward.
Austin's figuring
is
out his
adjudicated
resignation
on
letter now.
then we're gonna be in that situation where we don't have a budget. Because there's no way that we can come up with everyone, the
Right.
fire department's gotta stay,
That's why I said like tying the school, everybody has to have skin in the game and
Yeah.
understand that there's a lot to be lost for all across the board.
yeah.
But maybe
But-
the 1/12 is the way to
Right,
go.
I mean,
Go
it's
ahead,
either.
Peter.
Yeah, I have a question about the 1/12 budget. If the school budget passes in 4 other towns,
We're stuck.
then the school gets their apportionment of that 1/12 budget,
Yep.
right? It's not 1/12 of whatever they spent last year, so that everybody gets cut considerably more because the school is going to get their cut, right?
Yep.
I'm just trying to make sure that I understand.
I don't know.
I think the school gets its cut.
I don't
think
know.
the school gets its cut by.
It sounds right, but I don't know.
Because we're still on the hook for the school budget, no matter what.
I don't know. I'm at the
We have
point
no
now.
control over it.
Until July 1.
I mean, to me,
But I think,
what do you think, big guy? Come on.
Oh, no, it's,
because if we.
that's why we have like 5 budgets when we.
Oh, I know.
It's because it's,
Yeah,
so
but we're
many
at
things
the
can
point,
happen.
but we're at
Right.
the
No, I
point
know.
now where this third budget,
Decimates the town.
no one, I mean, we've got, I don't want that to close, I don't want that to close, it won't do this, it won't do that. It sucks. We know that. Get out there and tell everybody to vote for the 2.5 override and why.
Right, but I'm saying that to get that support, we need to make sure people understand that everybody's being transparent.
Yes.
And that there's no, we're gonna
So
do this, we're not gonna do that.
Well, I
stuff.
think
It's gotta be
several of
straight.
us have said it. We now are in a position where we reconsider what Gary had said about closing 2 buildings a while back, or we've got to tell all the departments to go do an additional whatever percentage cut.
Well, we take the 218 or 213 that's left, and whatever percentage you are of the budget is the percentage you take of the 213.
Yeah.
So if you're 2%, you take 2%. If you're 5%, you take 5%. And if, 10%.
I would recommend that we do that.
I would too.
And it's gonna be devastating to everybody, but I think anything that you guys do is gonna be devastating. to
There's
the
no
town.
positive outcome other
No,
than
it's not.
We
It
know
just
that.
doesn't work.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, guys, is at this point, last week we said we were gonna put together 3 budgets on the floor. Is that still what we wanna do?
Well, we have a.
The override, the stabilization, and
Drastic cut.
somehow cutting that
That's what you guys were looking
218,
at, some kind of.
What choice do
Whatever.
we
plus
have?
everything else. There
The
is no
choice that
other
we
choice.
have is just put one out there, and if that bombs, then we have another town meeting.
I was gonna say, any thought on taking the stabilization off the table?
In my opinion, that would be the thing to do, because next year, we will have an insurmountable mess
So if that.
that we would leave in Mr. Saganowitz's lap.
Well, it would be off the table if it doesn't pass. If the override, if the
No, I get-
stabilization doesn't pass, it's off the table.
Right.
Can you tie that second budget with the stabilization to the override?
No. That's the reason why we want,
Right.
that we wanted 3 different choices.
Well, that was a question I had. with
That's kind of my fear, right? If the stabilization is the deal, then the override, nobody's gonna support the override, because they're gonna, that's my fear, is they're gonna think that, okay, we did stabilization, I'm not gonna support the override.
So we take
And then
that.
you're still not bringing the departments where they should be.
No.
You're not bringing the departments
Oh,
where
no,
they
it's
need to
huge
be.
cuts.
And next year,
Right.
Right,
It's
right.
worse.
we'd be starting July
You'll be-
1st on the budget.
You will be having the state police, and you will be using all the fire departments
Right.
from all the other towns, because you're just gonna have twice as much of
Right.
I mean, it's a lot of money.
So we take that one off the table, we have just the override
Just the two.
and the horrendous cuts that we don't wanna do.
And if somebody brings something mid that doesn't allow us to have a budget, then we go to the
If
one.
somebody wants to do stabilization, anybody can make a motion that we use stabilization. Anybody can do that at any time, but I don't think it's gonna fly. Anybody that understands
We'll
stabilization.
have to explain.
Right, and I don't want it to crush the override, because the override is really the only thing we can function with, so,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Go ahead, Peter.
As I'm hearing the discussion about cutting all the departments, I have a question that I'm very sure this body can't answer. Does anybody know what the minimum funding requirements for the statutory authority of each of the departments is? The statutory requirements, excuse me. Town clerk has statutory requirements. Treasurer collector, statutory requirements. Accountant, they all have statutory requirements. And so I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how much further they can go, any of the departments can go, and still meet the statutory requirements of those departments.
Well, so aren't
And
you
I
at
don't know
that,
if I'm-
aren't you at that point saying if you can't meet statutory requirements, that you're closing down the department?
But if you're closing down an department, you're not meeting state law. The requirements of that's what I mean. State law defines what each of these departments must do, their functions they must perform.
So, all right, but, so that means that the town meeting cannot vote to not fund the departments.
For town clerk, accountant, town treasurer collector, because we have state requirements that have to be done.
Okay.
You can't close those. They-
So,
No,
what
I'm
would-
not
what
saying,
would-
I'm sorry, I don't mean to
Unless
interrupt,
you
but
go
I'm
on
not
with the
saying
state
that they
receivership.
can't possibly be cut. I'm saying I don't know, and I don't expect anyone in this room knows, what the funding level reduction would be to minimally meet, I can't, and I'm not gonna begin to guess, I'm not
Yeah,
gonna.
no,
But I'm just, this is what I'm saying, when we think about cutting all the departments, we can't lose sight of those statutory requirements of the departments.
so those departments wouldn't be subject to an arbitrary cut.
Well, we'd have to figure out what that minimum is.
We have to have them figure out for each of those required departments what those require.
They
what the
can't be
funding
And so
requirements.
now we're going
closed
till next week
because
because no one
there's
works
a
tomorrow.
Mass general law that requires
What's
the
that, Karen?
reporting that needs to
I
be
said,
done.
therefore, we won't have those numbers until, next week, because
Right.
no one works tomorrow.
Aren't these full-time employees?
I work
So why don't they
tomorrow.
work on Fridays?
Yes, no.
I always
There's a lot
work
of
on
people
Friday.
that.
The building.
No. I'm not meaning you. I'm meaning Gary. It will not be here tomorrow to get that word out. Neither is Tamika here tomorrow to get the word out.
I will come in if
They
but
have
what
been.
word am I getting out? I'm confused.
I'm asking the question. Don't worry about that. Right now, I'm just saying, guys, we just need to get what we need. I'm also fine with taking the 3 budgets off and say we put up together the 2.5 override, and that's the only budget we put forward. If the 2.5 doesn't go, then we rush like scared little field critters to try to get a budget done by June 30th.
But you still have to have
We
that,
can't
whatever
afford
it is,
another
that next
town
budget ready.
meeting.
You have to have that.
Sorry, go ahead. How do we pay for another town meeting?
Have it on a weeknight.
But how do you pay for the legal alone?
Oh, well, legal's a problem, that's true.
It's in this budget year. Who cares?
For one town meeting, not for another one.
We have no extra money anyway.
I just got 10,000 from you guys from the reserve fund for legal, because I ran out of money.
Okay.
You could do it free cash, and we could dip below the 150, keeping it into next year. You could take it from that.
We can also take it from the reserve
If-
fund.
Or reserve
I
fund.
have a question. If it's forced to go to 112,
I'm not saying that. I'm
no,
saying
no, no, no,
we
no,
could
no.
rush by June 30th.
No, I'm thinking if it does, everything fails and we can't get everything in order to do it again before June 30th and it goes to 112. We've had this conversation in the past because there's certain bills that come due the first quarter of the year versus the second or the third. So I don't remember all those specifics, but is there impetus is that a potential driver to get people to have a vested interest? Not necessarily to know what they're voting on, to show up and be engaged. I don't know.
I mean, is this something you want to consider that we reschedule a town meeting after the override vote? So that you know whether you have an override or
I
not?
don't think you can do that.
You can open the meeting and
Sure.
close it and put it off for the, whatever.
Yeah, but I think the problem comes in where that, no matter how good we are at getting the word out, the best way to get the word out is the town meeting, so that people will go to vote. Because you've got 200 and something people that will be there to hear it.
I agree with that.
The
I understand the
mailings,
benefit of both, but
the
it's also a benefit to
cable,
know
you know,
what you have.
that's all nice, but that's,
Or
So are we fulfilling our obligation by not having a balanced budget at the town meeting?
Oh, we are. It's with a
we are,
2.5
because it's with a
override.
2.5 override.
Is that technically a balanced budget?
Yeah,
It is.
yeah. And 2.5 overrides in the revenue, so that's a balanced
So if we
budget.
present
We should
just
go
the
without a
2.5
slippery slope,
override
yeah.
and nothing else, that gets the word out. We're not comfortable
Well, I
with the
think-
cuts we would
yeah.
have to make without the 2.5 override.
Well, I think everyone in this room and probably others have stated and agreed that this town is not going to operate without a 2.5 override, and therefore we do not believe that this town can do anything without a 2.5 override. So we don't bring a budget without a 2.5 override.
So it
period.
all has to be tied to the 2.5, and Randy can't entertain anything differently, which he has that right, I believe. And we go from there.
So we would go with just for my thick skull here, we're gonna go into the town meeting, we're gonna open the town meeting, we're gonna vote on a 2.5 override, we're gonna explain all the reasons why we need everybody to vote for it, and we're gonna close the meeting at that point.
Well, you're gonna
We're gonna go
present
through all
a
the
budget
warrant
that
articles.
is based on the 2.5 override.
All the warrant articles will
Everything
stay
will
contingent
upon
on.
Right, contingent.
2.5
All
override.
right,
So you
so
would do
then-
those
Money
warrant articles, and they're all contingent on
Including the school
override.
one.
And then what,
Including
and
the
then
school.
we're gonna have another town meeting then?
If
Well, you
have
may
to.
not if it doesn't.
We're not gonna
pass.
have to,
Right.
because they're gonna pass a 2.5 override, and we're not gonna have that problem.
Would that,
She said.
if there is a second meeting, is it have to be an annual, or can it be a special?
Special.
It would be a special.
Yeah, we do
Because we will
special.
have already had our annual.
So it would technically be a special. Does that change the rules and set us up for, like, you have a much smaller quorum requirement, isn't that right? No, it's the same quorum?
Same.
It's pretty much all the same thing. But at least that you present it and say, look, this is all we got.
Oh, God, what
And
is he
then go to
running
the
for?
polls and move on.
What you got, Peter? You ran like a scared
There is
rabbit.
no difference, practically speaking, between an annual and special. A town meeting is a town meeting is a town meeting. Because of our bylaw, the
requirements for posting for the annual are the same as posting for a special, where there's a small difference in MGL.
So, within the finance committee, we do not think opening the meeting, closing the meeting based on, no, okay.
I don't.
You're almost,
I don't.
you're almost doing the same thing. You're saying, look,
Yeah.
this is the budget we have, this is the only way it will work, we're not entertaining any changes, and we're moving on to the other warrant articles, because of, and then if the override doesn't pass, then it's gonna be a shit show, and everybody's gonna have to figure out how it's gonna be straightened out, because it's not getting straightened out now.
I guess then I would make a motion to go forward with that, but I would ask one thing. Is, do we have a consensus before you go, Skip? I know you're probably gonna have to cross your legs for a second, but. Do you,
On camera.
could Karen ask through the chair, could the chair ask if the selectmen are in favor of this strategy? 'Cause
The selectmen presented a balanced budget with an override, that was what we supported from day one, but we don't present the budget.
No, but
We
you
put the
support-
override out there because we feel that that is the way that we need to function.
But would you, you're not gonna stand up and go, that's horrible at the town meeting, for what we're doing.
What, the
Oh, yeah, no,
override?
let's close.
Darren, before
I don't
make a
know what you
motion,
can
Can I just make a statement? Playing devil's advocate, I worry that there are certain residents that are going to see the town as almost bullying them or forcing them into passing a 2.5 override because they're not being given any other option. And there are people that no matter how we present the dire straits are opposed to an override no matter what you say. So I just wonder if we're gonna set ourselves up.
That's not gonna matter then.
Yeah, we're not getting them anyways.
Well, and I don't, while I agree with you, then they can join the finance committee and run for selectman. Go
Or
ahead,
they
Skip.
can donate.
We're good. Thanks, buddy. Sorry. So I'm not, I don't really care, because there's a lot of armchair quarterbacks around.
Everybody's got their opinion. And if they decide that they don't want to, I mean, we talked about it. There are going to be people, Nancy talked about it, there are going to be people who are going to be impacted significantly. We could be telling people they're going to have to end up selling their house and moving out of town because they can't afford the increase in the taxes. That's,
But now we're not giving them a choice.
Well, they always have a choice because they go to the ballot.
Yeah.
And they vote or they don't vote. So they still always have that choice.
Well, you're playing devil's advocate through the chair. She's playing devil's advocate, but you can't have it both ways. You have to, we have to say, you didn't like the way we were gonna cut everybody.
Yeah.
And we don't wanna hurt the town. I don't know what to, I don't want my taxes to go up $700-800. But where else are we at, guys? I think we should.
And the word's still gotta get out that the impact it will have. This is what you'll have with an override, and this is what, I mean, basically, there's gonna be huge cuts
Devastation.
across, all
We're
the
gonna have to have a
departments
quick
and
meeting
services.
after that, and it's gonna be devastating. That's it.
Well, by June 30th, we'll have to have a meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So about the only thing that would be is that we would need Gary within the next week to get us the information of the statutory minimums for all of the departments.
But we don't really need that until.
But we might as well get it
might as well have
now.
it.
Get it now.
It's
We're
good-
gonna
it's
have
good
to
to have
keep
a-
meeting every week right up through
Right,
that
it's
to
it's
get
good
those
to have that
budgets ready
picture
for
of like
whenever.
what this budget, like if you cut all the department, you still should have a picture of what that budget.
Oh,
would
we're gonna
look
need
like.
to know
Right.
where it's gonna go, if it's gonna go.
Well, we've already decided that. We've already said that we're here and we're cutting that percentage from each department. I think we've already agreed upon it, even though it sucks and it's not good. I think.
But once we know the statutory requirements, we can cut specific departments
Right.
differently than everybody else.
But like I said, the word's still gotta get out that this is what's gonna have to be cut, and
Yeah.
people need to make decisions.
I think we have the budget. It's just a matter of getting the actual numbers down to. But that doesn't. Once we have the numbers, it's just going to be a matter of going percent by percent.
Would you like a motion? Would you like to have a consensus, or you're the chairman? You tell me what you would like.
Let's get a motion and a vote on this so that we have it out there, so that no one can say anything.
Make a motion that the finance committee bring one budget with a 2.5 override of 2 million. Is that what we're doing? 2 million to the floor at town meeting, annual town.
Which is balanced.
Yes, it'll actually.
With the 2.5 override.
2.5
Frank, just gotta put that in there as a balance.
I don't think we did.
Okay.
Because it's actually.
Well, because the
second.
Right, the numbers will speak for themselves,
Right.
it's all tied to it.
But I just think we should, yeah. Okay.
Any discussion, concerns,
I'm sorry,
questions?
I missed who seconded.
I seconded it.
Oh,
Alex
Darren,
made the
I'm sorry,
motion.
thank you.
Who?
Okay.
Yeah.
We have discussion now.
Just to confirm, we are confident that the moderator can direct the town meeting to only address that particular budget?
I think he has the ability to not entertain any, I'm sorry?
Yes, yeah.
Right.
So-
He controls the meeting,
So
so
he can shut down anyone that would come up and propose anything else.
So would he,
I
would
believe
he
so.
present the,
Did you check on that?
would he, at the town
You
meeting,
can't.
would he just
Yeah,
say,
Somebody could get up and say they're making a motion to adjust the numbers that's out there.
but does he have to recognize it? Is he required?
If they make a motion,
Okay.
then he would have to and ask if there was a second from the floor.
Okay.
Then it has to be in writing and given to the clerks, and then if there's discussion, then they vote. If
Yeah, we'll have to
people
deal
vote
with that when
for
it
it.
happens.
Well, but so what it says is, we're not, there's no control here. We present the budget, it's balanced, 2.5 override. And they could say, nope, don't like that, you have to go back and do it again. We could go back in
It is
with
Robert's
percentage cuts and do what we have to do. And as Lynn was saying, the next time that we got together, they could say, no, I don't like that either.
Yeah.
We're gonna burn up your
We could be at that for
legal
years.
fees, just figuring out this, but we have to have, well, yeah. I think that Randy has to have very clear, concise direction from legal on how he should move forward with this, so that he knows exactly the ins and outs of what's gonna happen, and then I think we're good to go.
What he's allowed to do and not do.
Yeah, because I think he has more discretion than everybody. Yeah, I think you think so too.
I would
I
double
have no
check
idea.
that.
Well, Lauren will be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we need to know this before.
Yeah,
You don't wait till that night, you make sure that he's aware and
Well,
ask the
could we make
question.
sure the couple minutes before the meeting starts, that she's there, he's there, we talk about it, we address it.
I would say we'd want that addressed at least,
Now?
like next week when you're having the conversation with her about the warrant articles, you have that conversation, because we should know
Is she
now.
coming down?
I'm doing it on Zoom.
Because waiting until the last minute, that's where there's way too
I
many
think we
things.
should, but I think we should have a discussion with the moderator in between now and then, and just kind of like bring them up to speed.
Okay, but on the discussion of the motion,
Yes.
do we have anything other than,
Is there any other questions regarding whether the motion and second is to only do the 2.5 override as the budget presented at town meeting? Any questions, discussions?
I don't think we have a choice.
Okay. Any other?
Can you offer an opinion?
I'm the one that brought it up.
You're happy
It's
with
true.
that?
That's the one that brought it up. I'm like, at this point, we're not gonna get anywhere, so we might as well at this point say, here's how we
Right.
can run the town, otherwise we're
I'm
not.
really asking a question.
Yep, I brought
Don't
it
have-
forward
don't-
for that reason.
so you know that her opinion is fair?
That's all I want to know. And I am happy, thank you. Without being scolded, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Will we, the finance committee, work over the next several weeks to have a budget, what we've been trying to accomplish,
Yes.
that doesn't happen with the 2.5 override, so that, assuming we have to have another town meeting,
So how many do you want?
we're ready to go? I mean, I don't
How
know.
many budgets do you want?
He's just asking for that.
He just wants to be
He just
prepared,
wants to be
like a
prepared.
backup.
Oh, I don't want to do it after the town meeting. I want to get it done now, and I want to have, I almost think we should go twice a week. I hate to say this, or one.
For what?
Well, someone's gonna have to tell me how we're gonna do this percentage thing, and they're gonna have to give me an answer, or they're gonna have to give us answers on the statutory
Yeah.
government things.
But they could email that to us, right? They
If
can
that
email us
we
the
can do that?
statutory minimums, and we can just,
What's that?
Nothing.
Also, I need, Karen, if I could, is the final number you have, the 234, whatever. whatever you said.
225.
Huh?
225, I think we were
The
at.
218?
218, we're at 218.
218, 708, because we took out all the secretarial, we took the 10K
Oh.
from legal.
So, to be ready for you guys, like Darren said, that 218.78, based on percentages per department, we should be ready, and we should get those numbers.
Well, no, what we need to know is statutory from you, is
Understood. No, I got that.
statutory.
But we
That's,
still have to set
that's
another
very
number
important
plan.
that we
I got
get that
Yes,
information.
we still have to come up with a plan
Yeah.
to get that
Yeah.
number.
Once we have the statutory minimums, we go with the percent and we just go straight down the line and just plug in the numbers. And that honestly will take,
I don't know.
20 minutes.
And you're gonna find out whether Randy
ahead.
has the ability
Stretch
to
to
not
45
entertain
is
amendments.
easy. Yeah, but I also-
I think he does, but I
Honestly, we don't
think
need
we
a
need to
meeting
know
to do
from
that.
town council if that's.
I don't think there's a statutory minimum as to how much you need to pay these, the offices, that, but they have to stay open. We have to be able to do our job.
Right, so
And if you cut
the
them back,
support
so-
would be gone or
So we're
something.
working
So
for
we hope.
minimum wage. You need talented people that aren't gonna be working.
Right, the
for
services
minimum
need to be
wage.
open
Needs to
now.
get out
So-
tomorrow,
Okay.
not
So
But
Rebecca,
I'm
does
not
that
a-
all
I'm not
money
a-
go
And
to
that's the
zero
reason
right
why I'm
now?
asking the question, because I hear
No,
these things thrown out, I want to
I know
know
what I'm
the
saying.
information.
People throw stuff out there.
Uh-huh.
Assessor?
Yeah, master law that are
Yes, sir.
required is the.
Police
Well, that's a good point.
DPW,
Yep.
no.
He does, has a lot of them.
I don't know.
He's quiet, but they come
Doesn't say
out.
much, but says- When he
There
says
may
it,
be,
means
they
something.
may have their own
Great
master
then.
laws to.
I mean,
how much
I can hear you.
I think we need to find out tomorrow if the moderator can keep the focus to only that
I
budget
have no idea what you said.
during the town meeting,
Are you talking softly?
rather than waiting till 5:30 on May 6th.
Oh, we're not gonna wait till 5:30. I'm saying before, she's gonna be meeting with Lauren Goldberg before our meeting next Thursday for the wording, so she'd ask at that point, so we'd have it by next Thursday.
But if we don't present another budget at the town meeting, there's no other budget, right?
No, all it
No,
takes is
but
someone to
if
stand
people
up
can
and do
start,
an
like,
amendment.
I think that's gonna happen, if people can start moving things around and vote to fund things, and I mean, it can get crazy. If you allow motions, anybody can be doing whatever they want to make motions.
Amendments.
Amendments, right.
I think we've seen on the floor where, like, we'll put one school number out and then somebody stands up
Oh,
and
yeah.
Yeah.
raises it
We've been
back
there,
up.
done that.
Yeah,
Didn't like
exactly.
those.
So those type of things.
So if he has the ability to control it, then he should, because if he doesn't, even if you guys had this other budget, there's, like I said, there's always a possibility of these groups coming in and decided they wanna vote to shift money to a different department. They can- And if the floor does it, then you have to do it.
I'd like to move the question,
Okay?
but I'd like to ask, I want one other
Go ahead.
conversation after this.
Okay. So we wanna take a vote first. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous, okay.
Are you available next week to meet with Lauren and Tamika to talk about this exact subject with, and we'll make sure that our moderator is around so he understands.
When do you have your meeting with Lauren?
We haven't locked down a day and time.
Okay.
I'm trying to get it on Monday, ideally.
Okay.
So many.
But I think that's like, let's just, you can get that one question answered in
Yeah.
a simple conversation. Does the moderator have the right to not entertain amendments? And then that's answered, and you know where you're going from there.
I wonder if he knows that off the top of his head right now.
I mean, she can ask it.
It's
I mean,
best that we make sure on
Yeah.
council.
She's gonna
so
bill
we get
us, you know,
challenged because we
$100
get
for it, but that's
challenged.
fine.
Right, but I'll already be talking to her, so
Yeah. Yeah.
get best bang for our
Yeah,
buck.
exactly.
So
And
it's
I just
really
wanted to remind
550
you guys
then.
that next Thursday's meeting is
That's
the
not
joint
100.
meeting to place warrant articles and to make recommendations, so just to keep that in mind in your meeting schedule.
So the only question that I have is when will we expect to receive the electronic versions of those warrant articles?
I have kindly asked town council to get that back to me, ideally by Tuesday, so that I can
Okay.
get it out to you guys before Thursday.
Okay.
I can send you what I have,
Mm-hmm.
with the understanding that it's not completely final, and that I'll have the approved version by town council
Yeah,
Thursday
I would
night.
say that's great, because then
Does
at
that
least
help?
everyone has a chance to read
They
it.
know what to expect.
Are there
Sure,
other
I
ones
can-
out there?
Huh?
Are there other ones out there?
No, so
No,
I
no, the town
drafted the
council needs to make
warrant,
sure.
but I just haven't gotten town council approval, stamp of approval.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I can't send it to you
And if
guys
there's any
ahead of time.
citizens petitions, all those kinds of things, because it all makes it easier to read them ahead of time. At least for me, I like to read them ahead of time.
Okay.
I don't like to read them the night of.
Yeah, there's 27 warrant articles this year, one citizen's petition
That's it?
from our friend.
Bring a lunch.
Is that 8.5 hours?
No, the square?
There's
Oh, really?
27.
No, not a square.
Well, we've had, I feel like every single meeting I've been to has been more than 27.
Well, no, I agree.
That's pretty average.
Yeah.
Nothing last time?
Yeah.
Wasn't that bad.
I think the last one was 28 and the one before that was 30 something.
And with the electronic voting now, it's much quicker.
And a lot of them go very fast, like 15 of them go
Oh, yeah,
in
it's just
snaps.
a
Yeah.
click.
Yeah.
And you
Let's be honest,
go
funny
on.
fast.
Get the light down.
Zap.
So is there any other business that we want to bring forward this evening?
I don't think so.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
And can I get a motion?
good timing.
Hold on, before we adjourn, when are we meeting next week? Do we want to meet next week on Tuesday? Because Thursday is now the joint meeting with the select board, so meet on Tuesday, Wednesday,
What do
whatever.
we need it to meet for? I guess what do we?
So we can go through and figure out what we can and cannot do.
Could we, all right.
Or do
Is
we
there
want to
any point
wait?
to that if we do not have the state mandate
Right, if we,
minimum who has whatever
or we
that
can
is?
wait till the following week. I'm fine.
I think we're.
Gary, correct, through the, Gary, do you think that you will have the time to find out those minimum mandates for the different departments? And then come up with a plan, come up with, are we gonna say the percentage, or are we gonna tell?
Well, I think Becky thinks that it's not a dollar amount. It's meant the services and the departments have to stay open, but I don't think there's a specific dollar, right?
Well, it's
No,
not like
it's
what
just
I
a matter of
get
maintaining
paid, but
services.
But
So,
there's a lot to get done.
Right,
And
right.
if you cut it down to one person,
the work's
I'm
not gonna get
I'm
done.
it's not gonna get
So I don't
done.
think he's gonna give you an answer that's gonna
Yeah.
Change.
what you
There's not
need,
gonna be
right?
any
That's
But
not
if
gonna
it
be-
says that the town clerk's office has to remain open for 15 hours a week, we have to make sure we pay the town clerk 15 hours.
I know.
You know,
But a
we
lot
have
of
to
that
make
has to do
sure.
with the elections, and isn't that like a different funding?
Side, yeah.
Yeah.
Town treasurer, whatever, there's gotta be
Right.
minimums. The good news is we got Austin, he's young, he can help, he can pitch in. He can learn the whole thing, municipal from bottom up.
But do we then also have to calculate the unemployment cost into that by reducing the hours and or if that person?
We're gonna not worry about that yet, but yes, we can do all of that when we get there. Because we won't know that until we sit down and have those.
Because this is just a backup, this isn't what they're presenting, they still just want to be prepared if the override
This
doesn't
is-
pass. But they're only presenting the override version, as far as I understand what you just voted.
Right, that's right.
Right, but I'm still gonna give, with the, based on the number Karen gave me, percentages per department, so we'll have that.
Right.
Plus the answers to legal regarding.
And then, like I said, it's important, because when you have those numbers, the departments still need to tell the public what the impact is gonna be.
Oh, absolutely. This is
Continue.
a,
And it's
That
even
doesn't
gonna be a
change
worse
that.
impact, so we need to continue to educate. Not to force an issue, but educate people, so be
we
realistic.
need to get
about it.
together the day before that meeting, like Wednesday or Tuesday or whatever's convenient for the rest of the board, so that we have a meeting before we have the setting the warrant, because there was gonna be nothing else going on that night but that,
Next Thursday.
next Thursday. That's gonna be a full night of that.
So someone just asked, should we meet Tuesday?
Well, it's
Or whatever
Tuesday,
day,
Wednesday.
Tuesday, Wednesday,
Tuesday,
it
Wednesday.
doesn't make a difference, whatever would work.
Is it imperative?
Wait
as
a minute, we
group?
can't do Tuesday, can we, because it's not enough time to post it?
Is there,
Yeah,
No, I could post it tomorrow.
Okay.
is there enough, is
I
there
have to
enough,
be on board.
does it have to be then, or could we go the week after?
I think
Because
we
it
could
go
go
the week after, we could go the week after.
Because at this point, all we're doing is finalizing those small numbers, which we're not bringing to town meeting anyway. Obviously, we're gonna have it, but we're not bringing it as a warrant article, so it doesn't need to be part of the warrant article. So I would think that we could do it the following week.
Right. The only urgency is that the departments know that the impact that could possibly happen, you know, like I said, so that they get the word out.
I think, but they're already getting the word out on how much the
Right, but
current.
it's getting worse every
It-
day.
yeah.
So
But
so
they
the
have-
services are getting worse.
But they have to get their impact statements out. I mean, we didn't even talk about that tonight.
No, that's not.
I would like to go next Tuesday, because I think we're gonna need it.
Don't most departments have impact statements? I mean, pretty much.
Well,
everybody
all
has
we
those.
need right now is that we'd only put out the Proposition 2.5 override, because we don't have significant cuts totaled up yet.
Right. No, but I'm just saying, when like Gary said, he's looking at those numbers, so if you start giving percentages to the departments, they're gonna know that it's gonna have that much more of an impact in how
Right.
it's gonna hit.
Right.
And that's gotta be, reflected, that losing police officers or not having an ambulance even more than once on Saturday, or
Well, we
whatever
still
the
haven't
impact
even
is.
talked about whether or not it's closing
I
entire
don't think it
departments.
Right, right.
Do you have an opinion
She's
For
got an
what?
opinion.
of this? Do you
what?
think we need another meeting or not before
Me?
next week?
I think it's always better to have more meetings than not enough, because I think if we waited too long to start this whole process. So I myself would like to have a meeting just so we could have the discussions, so that they're not long meetings, they're shorter meetings, and we have discussions and we can get stuff out to the departments.
So is it Tuesday or Wednesday next week? What would everybody like to do?
Yeah.
Either one is fine with me.
Yeah, I'm fine.
If the day ends in Y, why not me?
I'm free either night, so it depends upon what everybody else has got.
I'd prefer Tuesday personally.
Okay,
Tuesday it is.
does that work for you?
Yes. Yeah, the only day I can do is Friday, so it should be good.
Well, that's good.
We're not doing Friday.
We can meet on Saturdays, guys.
No, we can't. Well, actually, you guys can.
Okay, so what are we looking for her, for us, the town administrator's office to post online?
You mean agenda-wise?
No.
Oh, that.
You're only going with the, right, you're only bringing the 2.5.
Right.
I
But
get
you still
it.
have to
I
have-
want to make sure that someone is there any problem with this?
I think I just would like to see everybody be clear, like, this is the benefit, this is what we're gonna be able to provide with an override. And this is unfortunately the cuts that you may be looking at without some kind of an override. So you need to be able to,
So next Tuesday, do you have enough time to get us the percentages that you think?
Yeah, I
To work with us, and we'll work with, it's our budget, I was informed of that, so we'll do it.
Yeah, we've already got the pie chart for that, Darren, it's just a matter of doing the math.
and to me,
I was gonna say, I
from
did the
most
pie chart.
departments,
I
you
know
have the
exactly how many
impact right now,
percentages
right,
it
what
is.
the
Okay.
cut percentage would be and stuff from other departments.
So next Tuesday, we can have the
Yeah.
worst
Yes,
case.
which
Yeah.
is what I had put in that document, but I'm unclear. Are we putting that out to the public even though we're not bringing that to the floor?
Well, no, you're gonna bring, I thought the comparisons were like, this is what's gonna be provided with the override, and if we're unable to provide an override, this is the impact we have, we'll have to make cuts. I thought there already was
I
just
already
two
did that, and
comparisons.
that's what I provided
Right.
to everybody, but my question is, do you want that out there even though we're not bringing that to the town meeting floor? I just want to be clear.
That's exactly what we're
on
doing
what
to
we
the town
want.
floor, we're bringing it either with an override, or we're not gonna have the
But the
funds to-
significant cuts right now isn't finalized, so
Right.
we can't put that out there yet.
Could
So
we
that's
wait
a
till next Tuesday?
that's what I'm saying, I
Right,
think we have
but-
to wait till next week,
Okay?
because it's not
But it's
something,
gonna be at least.
Are you talking about those 3 1-pagers
Yes.
that
Yeah.
we got emailed?
Yeah, why can't we, no, I
But I
mean,
think they'll be
We're
in
right.
general enough.
Yeah, they're
that it's
general
like we don't
enough.
have-
Yeah.
I mean, it's not down to
Like,
250,000.
I just wanna make sure that it's clear, because like I said, we need to
We're
make
running
sure
out
it's
of
clear to
time.
people,
I mean, now we're
so.
gonna
yeah,
run
but
out
I
of
think if we decide, if it gets decided to close 2 buildings, that has to be on here, that's not on here, so
But can you
the
put, like,
misinformation is worse than,
It's gonna, yeah, people are gonna get
Can you
ticked,
word
they're
it
not gonna
that
believe
the
anybody.
possibility exists that town, entire departments may close?
no, because the problem comes in where Gary's statement that was placed on the website, everyone had them on Sunday, and how many times did I have to tell them that was off the table? So if we're putting that back on, that has to be something that we go out and say, so I would rather post this and tell them the importance of it, and then after next week's meeting, then we can go through and make sure we have the significant cuts kind of sort of ready to go.
I like that.
But you gotta
Makes
keep
sense.
it fairly simple and
I
clear.
agree, but we have to make sure, that it's accurate. We don't want to put something out there and go, whoops, we were just kidding, here's what's going to happen.
Being cut.
Because the misinformation is 4 times worse.
well, it wasn't misinformation, it was changing decisions.
Before that was posted, it was removed, but let's not go there.
I have a motion on the floor.
Yes,
Do
you
not-
do.
we're
Do we
going
have a
down the
second?
spiral.
Do we have a second?
Well, I seconded it, I
Yeah.
believe.
Okay,
Yeah.
all in favor?
Aye.
Because we're going down the wrong hole. Done. Thanks.
All right, can I get, okay, do I have a second?
Seconded.
Roll call?
Okay.
I usually look at Tommy and he does it, but he hasn't been here.